A discount sign can change how expensive something feels before you even decide whether you need it. If a jacket was first shown at $200 and then marked down to $100 may feel cheap. But that feeling came from the first number. That is anchoring bias at work. Anchoring bias is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we see, hear, or estimate. The anchor can be a price, a salary number, a first impression, a rough estimate, or even a random number. Once it appears, later judgments quietly adjust around it. The tricky part is that people often know the anchor may be imperfect. A buyer may know the list price of a house is just the seller's starting point. A job candidate may know the first salary offer is negotiable. Even then, the first number can still shape what feels reasonable. Anchoring works because the brain likes shortcuts. Instead of building every judgment from zero, it starts with something available and adjusts. The problem is that the adjustment is usually not enough. People move away from the anchor, but not as far as they would if they had never seen it. Imagine two people guessing the value of a used car. One sees an asking price of $15,000 first. The other sees a private estimate of $11,000 first. Even if both inspect the same car, their final guesses may stay closer to their first reference point. Anchoring also affects first impressions. If someone is introduced as brilliant, you may interpret their quietness as depth. If the same person is introduced as difficult, the same quietness may feel cold. The anchor is not a number, but it still becomes a starting frame. Negotiation uses anchoring deliberately. The first serious offer often sets the range of the conversation. A high opening price can make a slightly lower price feel like a concession, even when that lower price is still expensive. This is why strong negotiators prepare before hearing the first number. Anchoring can hurt when the anchor is irrelevant. If a salesperson says a luxury watch is usually $5,000 but today it is $3,000, the anchor may make $3,000 feel attractive. The better question is not what it used to cost, but what it is worth to you now. The bias shows up in everyday spending. Restaurant menus may place a very expensive item near the top so other dishes feel moderate. Subscription plans may show a premium option first so the middle plan feels sensible. The anchor changes the emotional meaning of the next price. Anchoring can also affect self-image. If you grew up hearing that you were bad at math, that sentence may become a mental anchor. Later, one confusing lesson can feel like proof. The person is not only learning math, they are fighting an old reference point. One mistake is assuming smart people are immune. Anchoring does not only work on careless shoppers. It affects doctors estimating risk, investors judging value, managers setting budgets, and students predicting grades. Expertise helps, but it does not erase the pull of a starting point. Another mistake is trying to defeat anchoring by simply saying, "I will ignore it." The brain rarely works that cleanly. Once the anchor is present, ignoring it still requires effort. A stronger method is to create your own independent estimate before seeing someone else's number. For prices, that means researching comparable values first. Before buying a car, check recent sale prices. Before accepting a salary, study market ranges. Before bidding on property, understand the area. Your own preparation becomes a counter anchor. For emotional anchors, the work is slower. A first impression, childhood label, or past failure may keep shaping the present. The useful question is, would I judge this situation the same way if that first label had never been placed in my mind? Anchoring is powerful because it feels like normal judgment. Nobody feels the first number physically pulling their mind. The later decision just feels natural. That invisibility is why the bias is useful to understand before shopping, negotiating, hiring, or making important personal judgments. A simple protection is to ask, what was my first reference point? If the answer is a list price, a first offer, a rumor, a childhood comment, or a dramatic example, pause. The first reference may still matter, but it should not control the final judgment alone. Anchoring can affect time estimates too. If a project manager says a task should take 2 days, the team may keep adjusting around 2 days even after new evidence suggests a week. The first estimate becomes a planning anchor. Another protection is to compare multiple anchors. One estimate is fragile. 3 or 4 independent references make the decision less dependent on a single starting point. This is why second opinions, market comparisons, and written ranges can change the quality of a decision. Anchoring bias does not mean every first number is wrong. Sometimes the first estimate is useful. The danger is treating it as more meaningful than it deserves. The goal is not to reject anchors automatically, but to test them before they become the center of the decision. One useful practice is to ask someone for an estimate before revealing your own. This keeps their answer from being pulled toward your starting point and gives you a cleaner second reference. The next time a price, label, offer, or first impression feels strangely convincing, look for the anchor. Ask what you would think if the starting point were different. That small pause can prevent a random first number from quietly becoming your idea of truth. Anchors also appear in planning. If a team starts with an unrealistic deadline, every later schedule may orbit that first date. Even when everyone knows the deadline was optimistic, the adjustment may stay too small. Anchoring can also shape estimates when no money is involved. If someone asks whether a city has more or fewer than 10 million people, that number can affect the next guess. The mind begins near the number it just heard, even if the number came from a casual question. This is why anchors can be accidental, not only manipulative. Anchors lose power when decisions are slowed down. A pause gives the mind time to ask whether the first number was evidence, strategy, marketing, or just noise. A good defense is to write your first estimate before hearing someone else's. In negotiation, investing, hiring, and shopping, the order matters. If you build your own range first, another person's anchor becomes information to compare, not the center of your thinking. Preparation gives your mind a place to stand. Anchoring is especially risky when emotions are high. A frightening news story can make a rare event feel common. A dramatic success story can make a risky investment feel safer than it is. The first vivid example becomes a mental anchor, even when it does not represent the average case. The cleanest habit is to ask for a second reference point. What do comparable items cost? What do several experts say? What happened in similar cases? One anchor can distort judgment, but several independent references create a more stable range. That range protects the decision from the first number that happened to appear. Anchoring can also shape estimates when no money is involved. If someone asks whether a city has more or fewer than 10 million people, that number can affect the next guess. The mind begins near the number it just heard, even if the number came from a casual question. This is why anchors can be accidental, not only manipulative. A good defense is to write your first estimate before hearing someone else's. In negotiation, investing, hiring, and shopping, the order matters. If you build your own range first, another person's anchor becomes information to compare, not the center of your thinking. Preparation gives your mind a place to stand.